Hello and welcome to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher, bringing you stories of believers in Jesus direct from the Holy Land, Jews, Israeli Arabs and Palestinians. Life for an Arab or Palestinian Christian is very challenging, living as they do amongst a majority Muslim population. My guest today is a Palestinian Christian living in Jerusalem who cares passionately about sharing his faith with his Muslim neighbours and at the same time having good and close relationships with Jewish believers. We met in Jerusalem in a recording studio. We have to keep his name anonymous, where he described how they share their faith.
We have what is called the Open Church, which is an internet ministry. We have 2 Facebook pages. One is pointed towards West Bank and Gaza to reach out the message of Christ, and the other to East Jerusalem. You know, East Jerusalem has quite the biggest Arab population in Israel, 400,000. Most of them are Muslims. So this is the evangelistic arms, but all of those that show interest to study the Bible. Last year we enrolled them in a virtual classroom technology. It's like you enter into a page, you see the lecturer, you see the notes, and you can lift up your hand and ask questions. This year we decided we want to open it more, so we created a closed group on Facebook that we use live broadcast on Facebook, also on YouTube. Last year we had 46 students. This year we have 170 students, so that's good. Of course, not all of them are committed. Like last year we had from the 46, about 24 committed to study. This year we have from 170, about 90 that are committed.
And typically, what sort of a background do they come from?
Well, most of them are Muslims, that they are interested to study the Bible. They are not necessarily believers. Sometimes they just want to disturb. In this case, of course, we kick them out of the group. But I mean, many of them want to learn about the Bible.
And they're living in either East Jerusalem or the West Bank?
Yeah, most of those that are enrolled are from West Bank and Gaza. Of course, physically we cannot go to Gaza. Some of those we meet in the West Bank, but the others we cannot in Gaza. For locals, you cannot go.
For these former Muslims then, if they do express an interest in Jesus, what are the implications for them?
Well, it's very hard for them. Islamic societies are not based on freedom, especially of belief. Anyone that is odd, even a Muslim that thinks differently, will be attacked. And of course, also atheists and all of that. So we didn't see really freedom in the Islamic, or especially in the Arab world yet. We're waiting. We saw that political fear is going, really, but the religious fear is still there. So we pray that the Lord will really deliver the Arab world from these bondages of religious terrorization, I would call it, where you cannot have freedom to believe what you want to believe. So we pray that the Lord will intervene.
What are some of the typical questions that they ask, or what is it that they really want to debate with you?
Usually they have 4 subjects. You know, they have been programmed. None of them really opened the Bible and read. They have just 4 typical subjects: Trinity, divinity of Christ, cross and salvation, and the Bible. These are the 4 main issues that they all the time roam around. In our Facebook pages, we try not to tell them, okay, stick with the subject of the post, because they're all the time like they are programmed, and you answer them the same question 1,000 times and they still argue, and whatever you write, they don't read. They just copy-paste from polemic websites just to... So there are good percentage of people that want to learn and want to understand. We are looking specifically for those more. In one of our Facebook pages, we did something, have been doing for the last 2 years, something new, to bring forth the social message of the Bible. And all our posts, it's about socio-political message. Things that people don't really share about the Bible. And so we don't talk very much about salvation, about redemption, about all of that stuff. We talk about different issues, like I just finished writing about safety at work, for example. That how when you go to the Arab world, they don't care about safety of employees and so on and so forth. And of course, it comes from the Torah. It says if you dig a hole and you don't cover it well, and people or animals fall in it, you have to compensate. So things like that, things like food, eating habits, also about political, how can we understand or live under an oppressive regime from the Bible. So things like that, that is very strange for them to hear. And whenever we tell them, okay, now we will not argue about this subject that you all talk about it all the time. What is your say, or what does the Quran say about the topic? And they are discovering that the Quran has no say about the topic, like in 99% of the cases, because the Quran is a very narrow book. It doesn't talk much about even the most essential things, like prayer. It doesn't say anything about prayer. Tawheed, which is worshipping one God, it mentions it, but it doesn't explain what it means. Many issues, important issues even, the Quran doesn't really explain. So they discover with the time that, well, it's not a holistic book as they thought. The Bible has a very clear message. Well, our goal is to tell them the Bible makes perfect sense and it's relevant to our lives today. Read it. That's our goal, and it's working very well.
So on the one hand, you are working to share these truths with the Muslim world on your doorstep. On the other hand, you're also pursuing your relationship with Jewish believers here in the land. And I particularly want to talk to you about a trip you and your wife made this summer to France with a mixed group of Jewish believers and Arab Christians, potential leaders in the land. Why was that important for you to be involved in?
Well, of course, from the last 23 years, I've been involved in many initiatives like that. But this one specifically, it was a smaller group, like a little bit above 20 mixed young leaders. And it was a week. And we did many things together, like also physical activities together. So we were living together all this time, playing together. And it was, for me, it was so unique, to first of all go back to essentials, like look at the foundation of a family. There's nothing in the world would replace family, the family of God. And of course, we heard their questions. There was every day time of questions. Of course, we thought about various subjects. I thought about salvation from a new perspective, about the theme of salvation from the New Testament, because as much as we talk about it, it's the least explored subject because it has so much meanings. And that's why we are confused. You say, well, I'm saved, so what? Now, can I do whatever I want? But if you explore the theme of salvation, then you acknowledge, no, it's not just salvation. It's life, it's transformation, it's working for the kingdom, it's waiting for the king, whatever. So also it was very interesting to hear their questions, and I didn't have the privilege to hear the Jewish side, and that was the young leaders' questions. For me, the two Facebook pages are like a mine That's where the treasure is, because that's where we get the questions. So for me, with no questions, I'm totally lost. I need questions. Because questions tell me what to write about and what to study about. So that opened my mind also about the other side, what they think, what are their struggles also as youth and as Jewish believers. And top of all of that, my daughter really, it was a life transformation for her. She's young, she's not part of the group. She's 15 and a half, but she participated in everything, in all the lectures, and she was asking questions, and really life transformation happened to her. And she's in contact with all the youth that were there via media, and I'm glad for her.
So something very powerful about getting to know and hear the other person's story. Then you come back here to Jerusalem, to Israel. Mm-hmm. Do those relationships carry on? Is it possible for them to carry on?
They are actually carrying on. I believe they will be lifetime friends, you know, whoever were there last summer. And of course, you know, the Swiss team, they really melted our hearts in their generosity and their kindness and the well-planned program.
You've been listening to a Palestinian Christian living in Israel, speaking from his heart. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you'd like to know more about our work through our bi-monthly newsletter, including news about our upcoming tours, please either visit our website www.olivetreefund.org or write to me, Julia Fisher, OTRF, PO Box 402, Billingshurst, RH14 4BQ in the UK. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.